Hi! I hope everyone's doing well. We are here for chapter 27 of If We Were Giants, and this is a time that you can make a prediction, especially how the last chapter ended, that they ended it with that everyone saw smoke, and that was like the worst thing that the tree folk could see. So you can make a prediction of what will happen between now and the end of the story, and what maybe the smoke was about. So maybe the smoke was just for the end to make them nervous, or, and I don't know if this story is going to have a happy ending. We can always hope, and most stories do, but not everyone does. So sometimes just thinking about what you think could happen next, or what will you think happen at the end of the story, will really help you just think about what you have read so far, or what you've listened to so far, and it really helps you understand the story. So, chapter 27. Tiha, Luwan shouted. Look, we have to go to the river. The master builder shook her head emphatically. We must stick to the plan. But the Stakers have plans for our own, so that means ours have to change. We have to adapt. Tiha just looked straight ahead and grimly continued to shout orders to the rest of the crew, keeping a firm line at the perimeter of the battle and crushing any raiders who tried to break through. The clouds of smoke grew darker, billowed up thicker from the direction of the river. Luwan turned to face Kira. I respect Tiha, but she can be stubborn. Good luck. He started to work his way out of the seat. But what are you going to do to... I have to help. Wish me luck. And with that, he wormed his way through the branches that made up the arm, took a running leap into the limbs of a nearby tree, and disappeared. Kira's heart raced as she continued to work the arm of the giant alone. She never imagined having to fight without Luwan, and the prospect of doing so now was deeply disturbing, as were the increasingly thick clouds of smoke that were creeping into the forest itself, spreading through the battle and the branches. She could smell them. A high-pitched horn sounded like a series of staccato blasts, the signal for distress, to be used in dire emergencies only. It came from somewhere near the river. We have to get over there, Kira shouted. Tiha nodded. Responding to the horn was part of the agreed-upon plan. She shouted down to her brothers, and the giant lurched into action, heading back to where it came from. Kira surveyed the scene as they lumbered through the woods. It seemed like they had won. Many of the giants were still in working condition, and most of the warriors seemed unable to keep fighting, incapacitated in one way or another. So what could be with that distress call, and why was the smoke getting worse? She saw for herself when the giant burst through the tree line and out onto the wide river bank. A huge bonfire was roaring there on the tree folk's side. It was circled by warriors who were dipping long sticks with material wrapped around the edges into the fire. The tips ignited in an instant, blooming and crackling red flames. The soldiers passed the torches down the line. They were going to burn them out. Standing in front of the fire, leading this terrible assault, was Redstreak. He waved a torch over his head with an impossibly long gray arm, tracing a ring of fire into the sky as he bellowed at the top of his lungs, exhorting his troops. The warriors with torches attacked the advancing giant puppets, swarming them and lighting them up in several places. The giants spun around. If they had come back into the safety of the forest, they could bring the flames with them and burn their homeland to the ground. If they stayed and fought, they would be incinerated. So they ran for the river and dove in. Sorry, my kitten's really awake right now. So I'll read it again. So they ran for the river and dove in, surrendering themselves to the water. Hissing steam rose from the current, and Redstreak threw back his head and roared with laughter as he watched his enemies rendered useless. The rest of the giants were paralyzed, caught between the forest and river. Should we retreat? Tiha shouted at Kira over the noise of the battle. Form another circle in the woods. Kira shook her head. They will follow and burn us all down. But they will ruin the forest. They would have gained nothing. Kira saw the crazed look on Redstreak's face and the wild eyes as he laughed and screamed at his men. They don't care, he yelled back. If they don't have victory, they will settle for destruction. A wave of overwhelming despair crashed over Kira. Not obliteration. Can't talk today. By fire. Not again. But what to do? Redstreak's plan was turning into the puppets into nothing more than kindling, and they couldn't fight on the ground, hand to hand with the warriors and their vicious weapons. It would be a bloodbath. What to do? Oh, dear God. What could they do? That's when Makina screamed, "Look," and pointed to the sky. Here came Lawan, curved poles in each hand, streaming down from the upper branches. Falling as fast as a stone, he was a hawk with fury in his eyes. He was followed by the hook hunters, dozens and dozens of them. They silently dropped out of the trees from everywhere. It was a summer storm, a rainy season of pure vengeance. To Kira's mind, what took place next, as if the torch-wielding warriors were a group of boors and the hook hunters didn't have a decent meal in a month. Each warrior carrying fire was the target of a missile in the sky. The hook hunters rained down on them, clubbing the invaders senseless and stamping on the torches until the flames went out. Other soldiers rushed to the bonfire, perhaps trying to get enough torches ready to overwhelm their adversaries. But two quick-thinking giant teams came walking up, holding between them upside-down roof of one of the tree folk huts. They had dipped it into the river, and it was spilling over with water. The warriors turned in time to see them arrive, but it was too late to react. The giants, working in unison, dumped their makeshift bucket on the bonfire, extinguishing the flames with a great hiss. As steam from one of the dying embers rose to the sky, the steam seemed to seep out of what was left of the Taker army. The remaining warriors looked at the forest where they had been soundly beaten and at the dead fire, which had clearly been their only hope of pulling off a victory. One warrior turned and ran for the river. He was quickly joined by others. In a matter of moments, the current was churning with soldiers clinging to the ropes that had been first set up, straining to get to the opposite side shore. When the first warriors wanted to retreat, hit the tree line on the other side, they disappeared into the brush and kept on running. Redstreak screamed at the men. He clearly wanted them to stay and keep fighting, even if it meant the sacrifice of every man's life. But the rest of the Takers were not listening. They had had enough. Kira leaned over and gave Tihad directions. The normally stoic builder broke into a huge grin. You got it. Their giant stalked over to Redstreak. The burly warrior grabbed a huge hatchet and set his feet shoulder-width apart, ready for one last fight. Kira worked the giant's arms, which swept down and scooped up Redstreak in its fist. The man bellowed in rage. Curry and Makina abandoned their arm and scrambled over to her side. They pulled on the ropes until the arm bent at the elbow and brought Redstreak back, inch by struggling inch. Makina lashed the rope tightly, holding the arm in place. Redstreak, caught upside down in the branches and unable to claw his way out, shouted and spluttered. But when the giant's arm was fully pulled back into firing position, Kira removed a few of the branches that made up the armed construction and came face to face with him. "This is for Zedush," she said. Kira slammed her cutting stone down on the rope that Makina had cinched up, and it clearly snapped in two. The catapult arm shot forward, sending Redstreak screaming through the sky, sailing over 50 feet high in the air, before crashing into the river. They had made sure to throw him past the safety lines. The current swept him down the river and out of sight forever. Ooh. After all of that stuff that Redstreak did, it's really awesome. It's not like awesome to see that they kind of did that, but it was good to see that there was a consequence for being nasty and all of that. So I will see you for chapter 28 shortly. All right, I'll see you later. Bye.